Hey everybody, it's Brian Asbury, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you could, like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow the developmentally speaking brand. Today, my guest is former WWE developmental talent, Alex Lee. Alex, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Can't complain. So, what made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Oh God, I hate that question. I was joking. I like wrestling. I think
Mhm,
that's it. Like really, it's hard for I hate that question because I never have a good answer for that question.
mhm.
I liked it. I was a fan of wrestling. I liked wrestling. I liked watching wrestling, and then I really wanted to do it, so I gave it a go. Like that's it. That's the whole. There's no good answer to this. I hate this question. It's nothing personal. Everybody asks because it's like the most obvious question.
Yeah.
But it's like really, I just wanted to.
So when did you decide that this was, you were a fan of it, and then this was something you were going to pursue?
I it wasn't like a long period.
Hmm.
It was like I was a fan on and off, and then 2008, 2009, I became like a real like fan, hardcore fan,
Hmm.
and then yeah, I mean, it was the same thing. It was like I don't really. It was such a short period between just being really obsessed with wrestling and wanting to be a wrestler.
Where did you decide to start training at?
Where?
Yes.
So I was living in Australia at the time and we didn't have a lot of options, especially not in my state. So I went to a training session in someone's backyard, literally. The guy had a ring. I don't even know where he got his ring from, but he was like a decent, 18-foot ring, I think. And then everyone there was like, we're talking about, oh, Landstorm has a school, and Landstorm, and Landstorm, and Landstorm. And then I thought, okay, let me check that out. So I went online and like he had a website at the time,
Hmm.
and I messaged him, and then yeah, that was it.
So at
And I
that, when did you go to Lance Storm School?
2010.
I believe at the time that was the hottest thing, like school wise.
Yeah,
Everybody wanted to go to Lance Storm.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So how
Every class
was?
was full.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say every single of his sessions was full. Like, yeah,
How was training with Lance Storm?
yeah, he was pretty amazing. Lance is really honest. He'll just tell you like this sucks or this is good or it's not good or like do it like this. And he's really consistent. So you always, when you're training, when you're really starting out, that's perfect
Hmm.
for what you need from a trainer. I would often hear criticism out of his, like, oh, but he wasn't like a promo or charisma guy or whatever. And it's like, that doesn't matter when you're starting out. In my
Hmm.
opinion, that doesn't
Hmm.
matter when you're starting out because until you learn how to sell and bump and how to do certain basic thing, run the ropes well, technically put together a match, you just,
Hmm.
it shouldn't really even be on your radar. But I think a lot of that was, just criticism for criticism's sake. So it's a real shame that he doesn't have the school anymore
Hmm.
because I think it's a real loss for pro wrestling as an industry. It's really it was really like one of a kind place, and I don't have any like crazy stories about like this happened in the locker room or not because it didn't. Like he was so professional,
Hmm.
and all your focus was on training and being as technically good as you can be and learning really important skills well
Hmm.
from the beginning. So you know there's no like wild Storm Academy stories,
Hmm.
WA stories, because it's just kind of he would run it really professionally and really, above board, and there was no BS. And I think that's like the best compliment I can give.
How long did you train there for?
I was there a year. I did 3 sessions with him.
Hmm.
And like watched, and there weren't a lot of girls. I think there was like one other girl in the whole year. Um, yeah, and then I went on to FCW the year after that, and the year after that, I came to Japan.
How did your developmental deal come about?
I went to oh god, they used to do these. I don't. They don't do this anymore. seminars where
Mhm.
it would be like TNA and Ring of Honor and WWE at the same time for like 2 days somewhere in Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Mhm.
And then I went there for 2 days for that seminar. I got injured just before I flew out. It was like a 2 or 3 day seminar because WWE was doing live events in Louisville, and it was on the back of that. And then we were filming this stupid reality TV show. And I had signed a contract for this reality TV show, but this opportunity came to, because I was in Canada, I had a year visa and my time was limited. So I couldn't kind of, ready or not ready, I couldn't miss opportunities. Does that make sense? Because I'll be
Mhm.
going all the way back to Australia, and then that's a huge, like way away, right? Um, so then I said to Lance, like, what do you think? Yeah, we just signed this contract to this reality TV show, but it's like I'm not really going to get these. I'm going to get less of these opportunities because I'm
Mhm.
going to be so far away. And he was like, well, it's always good to be seen. Just sometimes this changes schedule last minute, so don't just because it says it, it's wrestling. Like you're just taking a risk to go in there. And I thought like, should I do it? Should I do it? Should I do it? And then I just decided to do it. And then I realized it was like a couple of days before I got injured, and it was worse. I realized you needed some sort of license to wrestle in Kentucky.
Mhm.
I didn't know that. Like we in Australia, we don't even dream of licenses for pro wrestling. So I was like running around sending the money and the stupid thing. Oh, it was so stressful, the whole thing. And then, I don't know why that sticks out from that whole memory. Like it's crazy the stuff you remember. You remember I was just so pissed because I was injured. I was like had to tell the TV guys like, "Hey, I'm gonna be away for most of this filming," and they were pissed. And there was this stupid licensing thing. It's like, who needs a license to be a pro wrestler? I was mad. So that just sticks into my mind, like the whole stress around that tryout. And then, I mean, it wasn't a tryout, sort of, kind of. And then they gave me a tryout after that in FCW, and then they made me an offer.
Now, how was your tryout in FCW compared to OVW?
So FCW at the time, that tryout was just like you are there observing and training for a
Yeah.
week. Um,
No license in Florida.
no
No.
licenses. Oh man. Oh, I'm like I still get mad about
I
that.
live by I'm like 40 minutes north of Louisville, so I know all about that. Like you can come to Indiana, no license. Anywhere in Ohio, no license, but Kentucky, it's licensed.
It's just
So
the most like, and it was
yeah.
like this boxing commission thing, and I'm
Hmm.
like, what is this crap? Um, no, the FCW at the time isn't what developmental
Hmm.
wasn't my idea what developmental is.
Hmm.
You had some amazing coaches, so that's what made developmental really good. But at the time, developmental was like if you're ready to be on TV, they polish you up or they change up your gimmick, your character, and that's it. That's what developmental was for. But it wasn't, in my opinion, teaching anybody how to wrestle better.
Hmm.
So, and I was still a rookie, so I wasn't, ready to be there. And I wasn't ready for TV. Like, let's not joke about it. Yeah,
Hmm.
at all. So, I mean, it was a tryout. Like, in hindsight, I, yeah, nothing really major sticks out from the tryout in FCW.
So when you got signed, was it a difficult transition? Because a lot of people that I've interviewed, when they come to the U.S., that wasn't a quick process.
No,
Like,
it sucked. Like, it
yeah.
really, really
Hmm.
sucked. Um, it's just obnoxiously way more difficult than it really should
Hmm.
be. Um, no, it wasn't a kick process. You had to go like through. I mean, there was like the contract, the visa. The visa really sucked. I remember having to go somewhere in the middle of Calgary where like they were taking my fingerprints and doing all this like homeland security stuff, and I had to get like a background check in Canada and one in Australia, and that was really inconvenient. The whole thing. But then he finally got there, and yeah, it's a really big culture change between Canada and, I'd gone Australia, Canada to America,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like kind of expecting America to be the same as Canada, and it wasn't like that at all. At all. Um, and that, it's great. Like I have family in America,
Mm-hmm.
but it just wasn't. It was just this whole new thing. So no, it was not an easy transition at all.
How was training in FCW?
Um, Again, like, look, if you were the biggest, like, I don't want to cut down
Mm-hmm.
your your interview here, like, but the biggest takeaway, the biggest upside to me going to FCW was that I got to go to Japan really early on in my career, and
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not been to FCW. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the biggest win for me out of FCW. Training was okay. I did like two sessions. I did the guy session and the girl session in the afternoon. Um, and then you had the strength and conditioning coach, which was like way on the other side of Tampa. And then you'd either have shows on the weekend, you'd have promos on Wednesdays, like I'm sure you know this, and then you'd have like shows on the weekends, or you'd have a TV taping or whatever. So it really depended on who you are. If you were if you were a diva at
Mm-hmm.
that time and you were a rookie, or someone, you were not in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
Developmental is for people that are like, in my opinion, and I still think this applies. Developmental is really misleading
Mm-hmm.
in the word. You be ready to be on TV and don't expect to be developed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion.
I've heard that there's been a lot of people that I've interviewed that have said that they weren't ready at the time, or they would stick with people that they liked, and then nobody else
Yeah,
would get the attention. Or
that's absolutely true. But the
FCW.
people that they like, but in their defense,
Mm-hmm.
the people that they liked were, veterans of the indies who were
Mm-hmm.
already really good. So
Mm-hmm.
they had a good reason for liking some of them, not all of them, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But a lot of them, they had a good reason for liking, because these guys are really good, and they came from, they'd done tours in Mexico and in England and in Japan. But
Mm-hmm.
if you weren't one of those guys, it was this really weird, like,
Mm-hmm. On
you
the
know,
chopping block at all times.
yes.
Because like LVW and like all the other ones, FCW stands out, I feel, because when they launched it, it was let's get wrestlers, models, football players, everybody that we could that they thought might have a look, or they didn't need no wrestling training at the time. So then the people like yourself that were wrestlers didn't really get the proper training and exposure because they were so.
If you were a wrestler at the beginning of your career,
Hmm.
probably FCW was like the worst place for you
Hmm.
in terms of your development.
Hmm.
So, but
Now, during your time, did they have any ideas of who they wanted you to be?
no, it didn't. I mean, there was like, uh, towards the end, especially, like, there was talk of me being in the Wyatt family,
Hmm.
because um, Bray Wyatt, Wyndham was, he had like pulled me in some of the promos with them and stuff. But yeah, no, it was just like there's nothing to who I am today. So it's just like this massive distance. But I don't regret it, and I still would have gone, and I wouldn't have changed a thing, because I got to come to Japan as a result of it,
Hmm.
which was just a really big deal. So it's like, if you just zoom out a little bit, you'll see, the point of that whole story.
So, did they give you a reason for your release, or was it just a budget cut?
No, I was just like one of the people that they released, and it was fine with me. Like, they actually WWE, like, I don't know. Should I say this? I don't know if I should say this. Um, yeah, no, maybe I shouldn't say it. But like, I negotiated better terms in
Hmm.
terms of my contract than what was standard. So I thought that was pretty generous, considering I was a complete rookie and they were releasing me. So that was fine. Um, but it's I don't think anybody gets developed in developmental. I
Mhm.
just and I don't think that um, the football player athlete model formula ever really works.
Mhm.
Like, save for a few exceptions,
Mhm.
um, absolutely. But if you do a ratio of how many people they hire from that demographic versus how many actually pan out as an overall strategy, you wouldn't bet on it. Do you
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, because it's like if you hire 1,000 and like one of them is ends up being really good, that's not a strategy. Like, that's not a winning strategy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I think it's a reflection of the value look above talent, because talent in wrestling can be, or ability, not talent, but I don't actually really like the word talent, but like ability, because ability can be, it's like it's a lever that you pull up and down. We can make you look better or worse, if we want
Mhm.
to. So the look is the really the only thing that matters.
Yeah. So how was after you release? What was your next move?
I came to Japan. I was still in Florida. I was still like living in Florida when I had the offer to come to Japan, but I had to come to Australia because of my visa.
Mhm.
And then I was already on my way to Japan.
So how was that transition to going to
Oh
Japan?
man, it was like a whole other world. This is like another world.
Mhm.
But then coming here was like the culture shock between FCW and Joshi Pro is like nothing I can put into words.
Mhm.
It's like people are like, oh, I watch Guy Girls, and like, is Satomura really, or like, is this person, are they all really like this? Like, yeah, they're worse. It's like, it is Guy worse. No, I'm joking. No, I'm like complaining for no reason. No, I'm not complaining. I have an amazing working relationship with everyone. So, to me, they're not, but, um, it is what, like, all those stories, it
Mhm.
is exactly like that. And worse, and then some. It is also kind of like not a good culture in its own um, specific way, but it is what it is. Joshi
So
Pro is like a whole other world.
so have you remained in Japan since your release?
Yeah, I did some shows in Europe. I'm hopefully going to do some shows in Europe again, but pretty much I've lived here, I've trained here, wrestled here. Yeah. I trained what used to be Kaientai Dojo, so 2AW Dojo,
Mhm.
down the road, and I've trained there when it was Kaientai Dojo, and I trained at some Joshi dojos as well. But personally, I preferred training at 2AW the most.
Mhm.
With Yoshida Ayato and Kotaro Yoshino and Asakawa. Maybe you guys, some of those names. Maybe.
I used to
Two.
work with when Dragon Gate came over to USA. I used to work with them. I did production and stuff. So that's like Shima and all them. So I got to work with them for a couple of years over here in the U.S.
Guys wrestling is way easier compared to women's wrestling here,
Hmm.
in every sense of the world. You know, it's like, I think it's all about like fate. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? What's meant to be is gonna be, and it's not gonna miss you.
Hmm. So what are you up to today?
Today, I'm actually working. I'm gonna use your show. Is it a podcast or a show? Sorry, is it a podcast?
It's both.
TV. It's a video
Yes,
podcast.
yes, yes.
I'm gonna use a video podcast to plug my new little thing a little bit.
Okay.
I'm Bosnian. I'm actually working on the first ever pro wrestling show in Bosnia. In the Balkans, actually, we've never had a pro wrestling show in the Balkans, and unfortunately, Bosnia is still an ethnic apartheid state, where is designed that nothing ever culturally or sporting or entertainment wise happens or is successful, so that the country disappears. And I really believe that wrestling. I think wrestling is like magic,
Hmm.
legit. I think it is the trick to all sorcery in everything. And I'm working on the first ever pro wrestling show in the Balkans. And somehow, I don't know how this happened, but like it got leaked a little bit somewhere, because I had like someone from this Discord group goes, "Oh, we're like a Discord group of people from the Balkans who really like wrestling. Can we ask you some questions?" And question number one was like, "I heard there's a new show in Sarajevo, which is my hometown. Like, is this really happening?" And I heard, "How do you all know? Like, pro wrestling fans, like, they know everything, you know." I told like my mom. So I'm working on that, and we have. Well, I'm starting from zero. Like, I do have some local government support in terms of the arena, which is a big deal,
Mhm.
but we need a ring. So, um, when depending on when this comes out, I might have some good news, but I will be looking, hoping for some support to get a ring made or bought and delivered into Sarajevo, which is my hometown, which is really hard actually, because in Europe they have these tiny, tiny rings
Mhm.
and they're really inaccessible. And it's really weird because I'm not used to anything. Like Lance has a 20-foot ring, Devon has an 18-foot ring here. I mean, like 18, 20 feet rings, and I can't wrestle in anything aside from that. And we have to start from scratch. So it's
Mhm.
going to be a 20-foot ring. So I'm also filming a behind the scenes documentary about the whole process. So it's like, it's definitely going to be, one of those like once in a lifetime, first time ever in pro wrestling history thing,
Mhm.
where we do this show that is in a country, that has never seen professional wrestling, surrounded by countries that's never seen professional wrestling. So, and it's just such a big deal for me because I was that kid that grew up in a war, and you know I never dreamed that I'd get this far. So that's like my project right now. Aside from that, I work for Cyberfight that owns Noah and Tokyo Joshi and Gunpro and Gunjo. So I wrestle for them. I train. That's like that's it. But the show in Bosnia is my baby right now. So if people want to know about that and keep up to date, please follow me on all social media at Queen of Strong Style. Just had to throw in that little plug.
Well, that's amazing. That's got to be a lot of work
Oh
to
man,
do
it's so much
something like
work.
that.
Being a promoter sucks. I don't want to do it. No, it is a lot of work. Honestly, everything is going to be easier once we have a ring.
Mhm.
Because once I have a ring, then I can, do everything else.
Mhm.
So, but it's a really big standard. Like I have to showcase what I love to people that have never seen it before, and there is no history tradition of pro wrestling in the
Mhm.
Balkans. Like there is none. I'm the first Bosnian, the first Balkan woman, I think, to do this. I've never heard of another one of me. So, and especially like such a social political environment where like there's constant talk of another security crisis, another war, and things like that, and it's like um, it's a lot. But
Mhm.
I kind of just feel like I was born to make this happen. So I'm going to give it everything I have. But step one is ring. We've
Yeah.
got to get a ring. So,
If you had any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
oh, like don't listen to other people's advice. That would be my advice. No, honestly, like I think you've got to ride or die as yourself.
Mhm.
Trust your instincts, even when it's going against the thing that like the execs in front of you want you to do. Because this has happened to me before. Like stuff I was about. Can you curse on this
Yeah,
podcast?
you're fine.
But shit was like impressed upon you. Like you got this, especially the diva days,
Mhm.
and you just like it. Honestly, in hindsight, I would have quit FCW and gone to WW Japan sooner. I think
Mhm.
that would, in hindsight. Don't follow other people's advice. Go with your gut instinct and ride or die as you. That being said, get as best technical. I mean that from a creative perspective, right? Like who you are, what you represent, how you showcase.
Mhm.
But from a technical perspective, get as best technical training as as you can.
Mhm.
And I know that that can be hard, even in the US where you have a lot of wrestling. Constantly, people are like, well, where would you go? It's really hard for me to find a school. I live such and such, right? Um, so those two things, that would be my best piece of advice, I think. And don't ever like think that you're backed into a corner that you can't get out of, because the business just changes and it just
Mhm.
gets flips, and mountains move, and there's no rules anymore, and like get out of your head and just try stuff. And for guys, and this is just like my pet peeve, but like don't be boring with your gear. I love men's wrestling. Like I
Mhm.
like watching it. Especially in Japan, but everybody's in black trunks and it's just like this is so boring for me.
Mhm.
Whereas I guess I come from that Joshi world. We have the gowns, the colors, the textures, like it's like
Mhm.
a whole parade, right? Like it's like a Mardi Gras out there. That's yeah, that's my best piece of advice. But just go with your own gut. Go with do you.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on today, talking a little bit about your time. And if there's anything I can do to help, promote your project, just feel free to reach out.
Oh, I will. I will be setting up a GoFundMe campaign for some of the funds we need, and it will
Mhm.
be like 100% transparency. I have a supplier. Everybody will be able to see like where every single dollar goes to.
Mhm.
And if we don't achieve our goal, I'm going to find a way to refund the money. I think it's probably going to be something like GoFundMe. So, um, yeah, that's the next big thing. Yeah, follow me on socials so you can be a part of it, and I will reach out to you for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
No problem. Thank you for coming on today. I truly
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it, and thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and continue to do.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you.